Hello, happy Monday, July 25th. We're almost to the end of another month in 2022. It's crazy just how fast this year has flown by, excuse me. You all have also made it. We're now fully into off-season mode, only 3 episodes a week for you all. I'm going to try my best each week to post my episodes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If I don't do that, I apologize. It would probably be something like, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, something like that. But my hope and my goal is to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. For today's episode, we're going to look at a player down in Wilkes-Barre who could make the jump this year, but I do want to temper some people's expectations with someone like this player because I've seen some lofty projections for him. We're also going to get into some of the Penguins franchise records and if players on the current team right now have any chance of breaking those records. And we'll also get to a poll a defenseman rankings fan survey that JFresh posted today, JFresh Hockey. Please go follow him if you are not already on Twitter. And I'll look at where Kris Letang landed, and I'll give my thoughts on why he just continues to be underrated by not just, I think, some of the hockey media, but by just fans around the league. So that's all coming up for today's episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at @LNRS4Penguins. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. That is BetOnline, where the game starts. Again, thank you all so much for a wonderful season of this show. I believe this was now the end of season 3 of it. Just record-breaking numbers this month so far on the listenership. It's up 50% compared to where we were in June. I can't thank everyone enough, whether you've listened to 1 or 2 episodes or, every single episode this month or just going back numerous months before that. I really appreciate your support, and I love interacting with, all the listeners on here. Again, next 6 to 7 weeks, it's going to be 3 days a week up until about mid to late September. And then we will be back to everyday episodes. Honestly, if I had to do 5 a week up until training camp, I don't know, man. I think I would I don't think I'd be able to, just because I'd run out of stuff to talk about. I think the 3 a week right now, I'm able to, get some good topics in there. My goal for you all, I'm going to try to bring on a player if I can, this next month and a half. Maybe 2. That would be awesome. But my one of my goals right now is to bring on another member of the Pittsburgh Penguins after I brought on Brock McGinn last summer. If you did not listen to the show at the time, you can go check that out. I believe it was episode 300 or something like that. But let's get into our first topic for today's show, and that is I've been getting this question a lot from some listeners, and they're wondering can Alex Nylander make an impact for the Penguins next year? He played well in Wilkes-Barre after he got traded to the Penguins from the Blackhawks. Remember, the Penguins gave up Sam Lafferty for Nylander, and the Penguins, for at least down in Wilkes-Barre, Nylander led them in points, 42 points in 67 games. He was tied with Valtteri Pustin, but also led them in goals with 22. Shot about 15% this year. Only 7 of the goals were on the power play, so 15 of the 22 were even strength goals. I think that's pretty important to point out. You look at the underlying numbers overall for him as an NHL player, and they're not terrible. I guess his last sample size was 2019-20 with the Chicago Blackhawks when he had 10 goals during that season. But when he was on the ice, the Hawks only had 49% of the shot attempts. About 50-50 in actual goals for, 47% of the expected goals, 47% of the scoring chances, 48% of the high danger chances. At least 56 of the actual high danger goals for. That's very good. His shooting percentage, 8.3%. So compared to what happened in Wilkes-Barre last year, it's definitely, it might regress a little bit. But, again, 2019-20 was really the last time that Nylander was, in the NHL. So, I've read takes saying that, he's going to pop 15 to 20 next year if he comes up. And, I personally, I don't see that because, the leap back up to the NHL level is very difficult, especially from someone, again, who has not played in the league in the last couple of seasons. Again, I understand that he had 10 goals and 26 points in 65 games for the Blackhawks. That was by far his best season in the league. That was his only full season in the league. Before that, he had only played 19 games with Buffalo, had 3 goals, 6 points. I'm not a big plus minus guy, but was -9. So that's, not particularly good. You look at his, chart from JFresh Hockey, 64th percentile for wins above replacement for a fourth liner, 83rd percentile when it comes to finishing, even strength offense, 43%, even straight defense, about 50-50 in terms of, how he ranks against his peers. But, primary assists per 60, 76th percentile, goals for per 60, 70th percentile. Again, those are 2 pretty good numbers. But again, most of these are just from a sample size of 65 games. I do think the Penguins are going to give Nylander every available opportunity to make the team through camp. I would say, obviously, outside of POJ, who's on a one-way deal, and, Drew O'Connor and Radim Zohorna, he probably has the best chance to make the roster. Forward, well, I guess I'll just say that forward-wise. Outside of Zohorna and O'Connor, I'd probably say he has the best chance to make the roster, but it's really no guarantee. Is he just going to be in the press box every night at this point? I do think he's he's a speedy winger. Can chip in a little bit offensively. Defensively, he's fine, but he's just he's had a lot of growing pains throughout his career, and at this point right now, I'm just trying to make sure, he's he's kind of out of those peak years that you consider to be, in the NHL, like, 22, 23, and all that. I'm just making sure at least, yeah, he's 24. So, this isn't someone that's coming up who's 19, 20, 21 years old. No, this is someone who's 24. Sure, could you say he's in the prime of his career? Yeah, but he's not in one of those peak years that really, come before, I guess, the prime where he's, still producing, but not as good as he did during his peak. He's going to be 25 at some point next season. I think what you've seen so far is probably what you are going to get. I think at this point, I don't see him in my projected top 12 right now. But, that can change if he does have a pretty good camp and a pretty good preseason. Again, they got him so that he could, rediscover his game a little bit down in Wilkes-Barre. They basically it was a flyer, I should say. And, credit to Hextall, that ended up working out. Laffer didn't really do anything in Chicago. And, Nylander found his game a little bit down in the AHL. So, now he's probably thinking bigger things. He wants to make the team. He wants to be in the lineup on an every night basis. We'll have to see. I think if he does make the team, maybe he scores 5 to 10 on a fourth line role. But, the people that are sitting here, telling me, or I've seen this on Penguins Twitter too, saying, he's going to pot 15 to 20 and something like that. And, that's not the majority of people. It's just a very low minority. It's like, okay, temper your expectations of it. There's at least, again, a couple other forwards in the system down in Wilkes-Barre who I would definitely take over Nylander. So in terms of, I guess, a percentage chance for, if he can make the team out of camp, I'm going to go 35% yes, 65% no. I think at the end of the day, he probably starts the season down on Wilkes-Barre, in my opinion. So that wraps up this first segment of today's episode. Coming up in the next one, we're going to get into some of the Penguins franchise history records and if some of the players on the current team can potentially break some of these. So before we get to that, betonline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs. You can find all of your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. You can find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, and even golf. It continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts, they have you covered. You can head to the Bet Online today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. That is Bet Online, where the game starts. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. Okay, so let's do something a little more fun. Let's get into some of the franchise records for some different things within the Penguins organization. I'm gonna start out with this though. When it comes to defensemen, I do not think basically anyone is going to touch the records that Kris Letang has right now. He's closing on 1,000 games. I don't know when anyone is going to break that record. Letang also has 144 goals in those games. He broke Paul Coffey's record a couple years ago. That record, in terms of the next closest player on the team right now, Brian Dumoulin has 18. So think of that as you will. Letang also has 650 points. The second place, Paul Coffey, 440. After that, Ron Stackhouse, Randy Carlyle, Larry Murphy, Sergei Gonchar. There's some people that will actually argue with me and other people that Sergei Gonchar was a better overall defenseman in this franchise history than Kris Letang. And, I love Gonchar. I thought he was a perfect, fit for the team way back when, he was a little bit older, but still he was kicking pretty nicely. But, finished with 54 goals, 259 points in 322 games. Again, Letang, 650 points in 941 games. He takes everyone's lunch money in terms of records in this franchise's history. Also has the most power play goals among defensemen in franchise history, 46. Paul Coffey is next in line with 40. All of the records I talked about for points for defensemen and all this stuff, I do not think those records will be broken for the next at least 2 decades unless they can somehow find a franchise defenseman in the NHL draft pretty soon. It's definitely a little bit bleak when you look at the defensemen right now in their system and all that. So, these records, they're going to be staying for a very long time. I think Letang, by the time his career is over, he's going to finish with well over 700 points. I wouldn't be surprised if he potentially hits 800 for his career. It's going to be close. I think he has a chance, but I'm definitely, I'm going to say right now, 725, 750. I think definitely 725. But I think, maybe that 750 to 800 range is what he'll end with, maybe potentially even more than that. But he's set to hit 1,000 games actually this season if he does stay healthy. That's another record that's not going to be touched for a long time. So in terms of, records among defensemen for this franchise, Letang has all of them, and they're not going to be broken anytime soon. Now, in terms of goals in franchise history, so Mario Lemieux leads obviously 690, Sidney Crosby 517, Evgeny Malkin 444. Obviously the best chance that record has of being broken is Sid. It's gonna be tight. But if Sid wants to play until he's 41, 42, I think he would have a chance at grabbing it. I do think, remember Sid did his 500th earlier this season. I think, I think he can hit 600 by the end of his career. 700 is going to be tight, but, I wouldn't put it past Sid to break that record. That record is, stood in place for a very long time. So we'll have to see. But again, I would have to think if anyone's going to break it, it is Sid. In terms of Gino, I don't think he's going to top close to 700 for his career. He is set to hit 500 pretty soon. He's only 56 away. So would have to say, because he had 21 and a half a season here, would have to say in the next 2 seasons, if he's able to stay healthy, Gino is also going to join the 500 club and be only one of 3 Penguins in the team's history to hit 500 goals. Assists, Mario also holds that record, 1,033. Sid is next up with 892. Sid is going to break 900 assists this season. He's only 8 away. He will, I think, definitely break 1,000 by the time his career is over. I know, in my opinion, I think Sid will have this record by the time his career is up. Again, only a few away from 900. After that, he'll only need 133. by the end of his contract, or whenever he still wants to play for the Penguins after that. With how he is continuing to produce at a point per game, I know the production is going to drop off a little bit, but I do think he's going to break that in the next few years. Points. So this one's a little more interesting. So Lemieux 1,723 right there. Sidney Crosby 1,409. So Sid well on his way to 500. He's going to have that very soon. I think Sid, again, I just said it, he'll hit 500, 1,500. I think he'll hit 1,600, 1,700. I think that's going to be a little bit tougher. Does he have a little over 300 more points left in him by the time his career's over? Not going to bet against him. That's for sure. I think, in my opinion, he's probably going to come up a little bit short. But I think, again, if anyone has a chance to take down this record that Mario has, it is him. Gino, he's closing in on 1,200. He should, if he's healthy this season, Gino should hit the 1,200 point mark by the end. And then I think, he has the potential to potentially hit 1,300. I don't know why I just said potentially 2 times in a millisecond, but I think Gino by the end of his career hits 1,300. I think Sid, 1,600 for sure, maybe a little bit over that. Just because I love looking at this site, I'm just going to make sure here, most NHL points of all time. With where Sid is right now, he's set to pass a lot of players this season. Right now he's tied with Darryl Howardchuk for 21st all time, 1 point behind Alex Ovechkin for 20th all time. I think if both Sid and Ovi are healthy this season, I think Sid eventually passes him for good. Doug Gilmour is at 14-14. Sid is going to pass him. Adam Oates, 14-20. Brian Trottier, 14-25. Sid's going to pass all 3 of those. Teemu Solani, he's going to pass him, I think, this season. Stan Mikita, if he continues at a point per game, he should pass him. So, by the end of this year, Sidney Crosby, there's a very high chance that he's going to be top 15 all time for the most points in NHL history. After that, got Stan Mikita at, you got Paul Coffey at 15-31. I think Sid will eventually pass him. Mark Recchi, 15-33. Joe Thornton, 15-39. Ray Bourque, Phil Esposito. Sid, he is going to get into the top 10 in NHL history for most points. Joe Sakic, 16-41. I think he can definitely pass him. Then it just gets a little bit dicey. Mario, 17-23, as I just talked about. Steve Yzerman, Marcel Dion, Ron Francis, Gordie Howe. Sid's going to keep climbing the leaderboard, but it's how high, just how realistic it is for him to get in to the top 10. Shorthanded goals, Mario Lemieux has 49. No one else. That record is going to never be broken. I will say that here on this episode. No one in the history of this franchise will ever break that record. 49 for Mario. Who's after him? Jordan Staal at 13. John Provost at 14. Maxime Talbot at 12. I honestly did not even know that Max Talbot had 12 shorthanded goals. If you would have asked me how many he had as a Penguin, I probably would have said like 6. Had no clue he was in the top 10 all time in that category for the Penguins. Ryan Malone is up there. Bob Airey, Jaromir Jagr had 9. Marty Straka. Game-winning goals. It's a 3-way tie right now with Crosby, Malkin, and Jagr. Actually, they all have 78. I think by the end, I'm going to go a little bold. I think Evgeny Malkin is going to have that record in Penguins history. I know Sid has, I think Malkin was above Sid before, the latter was eventually able to tie it. But I do think Malkin is going to take this record. Both of these players are going to pass Jagr. This year, power play goals, 236 for Mario. Malkin's at 162. Sid's at 153. I personally don't think this record is going to be broken anytime soon. Malkin has a chance, but, he has, if my math is correct here, 26. So he needs, 74 power play goals by the end of his career? Probably not. I think that record is going to stay for a very long time. Here's a good one, though. Penalty minutes, Kevin Stevens, 1,048. Malkin is at 1,008. I think Malkin is eventually going to get this franchise record. He's second all-time in it. Only he needs 40 more minutes with how he takes penalties at this rate. And I know people love to come after him for that. I do think by the end of his career, he will have that franchise record over Kevin Stevens. Even strength goals, Mario finished with 405. Sid's at 360. Again, wouldn't put it past Sid, but I still think Mario is going to keep that record. Here is a cool one, though. I did not I've not really thought about this stat. So Mario Lemieux is all-time for most shots in franchise history, 3,633. Sid is at 3,539. So needs what? 94 more. I say he does that. I think Sid is going to break that record by the time his career is over. He averages enough shots per year to break the record, I think, in the next 3 to 4 years. I do think Sid is going to have that record by the time it's up. Looking at shooting percentage here, Peter Nedved all time with 19.8. I don't think anyone in the franchise's history is going to break that. Hat tricks, Mario going to keep that record. 40 all time. Evgeny Malkin is at 13. Sidney Crosby 12. That record will never, ever be broken. So there's definitely some records on here that, I think will be broken, but there's a lot on here that Mario has, that it's like, wow, just makes you forget, just makes you remember, how dominant he was when he played. My opinion, greatest hockey player to ever touch this earth. I'll die on that hill for everyone. But that wraps up this second segment, looking at some of the Penguins franchise records. If you have some other franchise records that I did not get to, touch on them in the YouTube comments. You can DM me on social media and that stuff. Would love to hear from you all. If there's other ones that I guess I just didn't really find or get to for this segment. Coming up in the final segment, we're going to get into JFresh's defenseman rankings from a fan survey and touch on what I think and just why Letang was definitely underrated by a lot of fans. So stick around for that coming up here in the final segment. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So let's get to this fan survey poll. I did vote in it. If I do not remember all the results off the top of my head, but so JFresh does this annually, does a fan survey just ranking the top defensemen in the league. Number 1, Cale Makar, Victor Hedman, Roman Josi, Adam Fox, Charlie McAvoy. Very respectable top 5. I do think those are the 5 best defensemen in the league. No problem there. Miro Heiskanen at 6. I'd probably put him a little lower, but he is a top 10 defenseman in my book. Aaron Ekblad 7. Fine. Jacob Slavin. Okay. Then it starts to get interesting. Moritz Seider at 9. I like Moritz Seider. He is going to be a top 10 defenseman for many years to come. Probably will be a top 5 defender for years to come. But, he mainly just has one full year of a sample size. Is he already a top 10 defenseman in this league? I guess I don't see it just yet. Quinn Hughes, while I like him, he is not a top 10 defenseman. Devon Taves, 11. Okay, well, that's fine. Tomas Chabot, I think he's just outside the top 10. Zach Werenski, I don't think he's a top 15 defenseman in this league, even though I do think he's very good. Pietrangelo, 14 is kind of weird. Dougie Hamilton, 15, and then we finally get to Kris Letang. So in terms of where I would rank Letang, I would put him over Dougie Hamilton, over Alex Pietrangelo, over Zach Werenski, over Tomas Chabot, over Quinn Hughes, and Moritz Seider. And I would probably make an argument to put him over Devon Taves. I think, in my opinion, he should be put in that 8 to 10 range for that fan survey. Am I going to sit here and say that Letang is a top 5 defenseman in the league? No. I think the top 5 that the fans, that most of the fans had, that where the results came out, it's a very good top 5. I do not think Letang is better than those 5 players. Heiskanen, I think he's probably a bit better than Letang at this point. Aaron Ekblad can certainly make the argument. Jacob Slavin can certainly make that argument. I think the rest of those players, though, like Seider, Hughes, Taves, Chabot, Werenski, Pietrangelo, Hamilton, I would take Letang over those players right now. So I would probably have him at number 9 on this list. He's the only Penguin player to even appear on the top 32. Rightfully so. He's obviously one of the best defensemen in the league. And, maybe it's a bit weird that I'm complaining that, he's ranked just outside the top 15 in the league by a lot of the fans, but, considering how he played last season and just how good the underlying numbers were, I just don't see how you leave him a little bit outside the top 15. And, again, I would gladly make the argument that he should be in the top 10 still. I think he's going to have a very good year again next year. Maybe he doesn't put up, 70 points, but, 50, 55, 60, I think that's certainly within range for Letang, especially, if Dumoulin does have a pretty big bounce back season for the Penguins, I would not put it past Tanger to have a good year. And, again, this just goes to show just how underrated Letang is by so many fans. And, I had some mouth breathers come in my mentions and tell me, well, he's overrated by people in Pittsburgh. And I mean, that's just not true. I think people in Pittsburgh just want, other people outside the city to, give him his due credit because he is one of the elite players at his position in this league and not enough people talk about it. I think that's all, of what, we're, I guess what I'm saying with that. So just wanted to briefly touch on that, give my thoughts. Again, wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not. People, again, I judge a lot of people with their hockey takes, with the way they talk about Kris Letang. If you don't think that he makes the team better, or if you think that he's a turnover machine, well, without bother looking at data, I'm sorry to say that I probably just won't take your opinion that seriously unless you just actually show me data when it comes to dumping on him. Because, sure, does he have stupid turnovers at times? Yeah, any player does. But, the best players on the ice usually have the most turnovers. That's just that is how it works. Great players tend to make more high-risk plays than lesser players when it comes to, the NHL. So wanted to end with that. Again, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Remember, I will be off on Tuesday. No episode coming for you all then. Next episode will be on Wednesday. I'm going to have potentially a top 10 prospects ranking where you all go into just my overall list and why I ranked everyone where I did. So look for that coming up on Wednesday's episode with a couple other things that I'm hoping to talk about for that one too. Again, thank you all so much for listening, and I'll be back with an episode on Wednesday.